Okay, hello and big welcome to the Cybersecurity Expert Talk number 4. And today's topic is artificial intelligence in cybersecurity. And it's an amazing lineup because we are completely international today. It's Magda. She is now currently in Singapore, Zuda, which is in San Jose, Silicon Valley, California, and from Sao Paulo, Brazil, with Dalton here. So thank you to the show. Amazing to have you here. Really, it's my wish list of experts talking in this show, to be honest. So when I was thinking about the episode, like artificial intelligence in cybersecurity, I got two pictures in mind. I mean, the one picture is, of course, always this positive picture, like what can we do? Like, can this artificial intelligence help us to improve stuff like that? And the second one, because I'm from this hacker generation who grew up with this Hollywood movies, like where artificial intelligence always takes over the bad stuff. So, and many of the hackers maybe know Skynet, which was the most impressive artificial intelligence network, which took over the world, and afterwards the robots was ruling the world and stuff like that. So there's a lot of, I think, imagination inside the artificial intelligence. And I would like to start with a more broad question. And the question I had in mind is like, look, what is really the current state of artificial intelligence? That's first. I mean, a lot of people, even let's take California, one of the technology evangelists, were writing books about singularity. I mean, the question, like for the people in the net, what does it mean? Singularity is, to me, the point where you can do no more prediction about artificial intelligence because the technology has so much progress. Let's say the artificial intelligence is improving itself, its own structure, its own programming, and by that it will explode immediately in terms of possibilities. And we as humans with our small brains, we have no chance to do any prediction anymore or to follow it. So singularity. And there are some people out there who say, well, the singularity is almost there, 2 years. Others say, well, it's 5 years. Another one say, well, it's 50 years. And I have no feeling about that. So my question to you, Sudha, is like, if you have the possibility to look in the future, so how far are we really away from singularity?
So hello, I'm a technology futurist, but one of the things I do is I look at technologies that I get excited about, and then I use data to figure out whether this makes logical sense. And so I don't think that I'm going to see singularity in my lifetime. And like you're saying, 50 years out is too ambitious simply because the word AI covers too many things. And the state of real AI that you're seeing in terms of, that you teach it one language and, it can learn the next language is what they're talking about, it learning itself, right? Everything else is narrow AI, which means it is basically taking historic data, looking for patterns, and identifying faces or learning languages or making sense of what I'm saying. So I usually keep Alexa here. I moved her out because she keeps talking when I'm talking. But you can see that they don't even know basic things. And then there are many algorithms that do interesting things one at a time, but it is narrow AI. So that narrow AI is not going to take us to singularity or anything else that is going to learn and have an intelligence beyond what we want to allow it to have. So well, that's my take on the timing of singularity.
I mean, that's really good, because if you talk to experts like you, it makes me more confident, like what is humanity and how long we will stay here in humanity without getting, overruled by the AI algorithms. But I have Dalton here, and Dalton is a digital transformation expert. So like you're not an AI expert as Sudha, but digital transformation. So if you talk to your customers and about the AI topic and even like cybersecurity, so do you think they have any imagination of what they are talking about, like the current state, and what are the possibilities of using AI for their approaches?
Yes, first of all, thank you very much, Mirko. It's a great pleasure to be with you here and with the other participants, Magda, and of course, Sudha. And regard that, I'm an electronic engineer, right? I work as a digital transformation consultant and advisor. And regarding when I talk to my clients, most of people think that AI is kind of Hollywood thing, right? And that robots will take the jobs from humans and things like that. But what, in my perspective, and when I work with the projects, with the products and clients, it's like AI is supporting, is helping the humans in a lot of jobs, right? And regarding the AI and the data privacy, it's kind of, they need to work together, right? Because it's totally important when we talk about, as Sudha was saying, about data and the privacy of users, of people, because it needs to work together with the fact that I don't want my data, my personal data, to be how can I say that in English? Spied by someone, by some company, or by the government, right? And this is a main concern when I talk with the clients, because of course that's their own concern too.
I think if we go to machine learning, this will become an important topic, because machine learning only works with data, and there's always the big question: okay, who's feeding the algorithms? But let me go to Magda in Singapore. I mean, to me, like the hotspot of tech nation. So if you talk to people in Singapore about using artificial intelligence, you know, is it more like that the people have really understanding of what they are talking, or is it more a buzz-like term that it needs to be everywhere and in every solution, whatever, if it's really artificial intelligence? So how do you talk with AI with the people in your country?
First of all, thank you, Mirko, for the question, and I'm really happy to be here. So Magda Shale from Singapore. Definitely, in general, technology is on the hype in the country here and in the region around. We're not only talking about artificial intelligence, but cloud, etc., all the buzzwords, blockchain. And I say exactly buzzwords, because most of the time, when I start a discussion with individuals or companies, I actually take the time to ask them a very simple question. What is the definition of that word that you are using? What does it mean for you? And guess what, Mirko? Most of the time, they don't know what does it mean. Or they give a completely wrong definition from something that just they read somewhere one day. But they do not understand what does that technology need to work properly? What are, not talking about, of course, the challenges to implement it, the risk associated, the privacy concerns as well. So they just, again, they think that somehow a new technology will solve new problems and it will be mature very quickly. So they also, in general, the general public, I think, in my opinion, lack visibility about how long a technology needs to mature to be used or change state. Like we said, like Sudha mentioned, narrow AI. We're not talking about artificial intelligence or singularity yet. We're not there yet. We are talking about a new technology that is rising, creating some buzz and enabling some use cases that are very interesting. But is it changing the world completely immediately? Obviously, no, it's not possible. It will take years ahead. And this lack of understanding the evolution is actually, in my opinion, due to the media and marketing buzz that companies are using as well. I mean, let's say, from a cybersecurity perspective, or when you discuss the topic with a cybersecurity professional, they will definitely take the time to ask the right question. But if you are talking to a business owner and you come in with, let's say, an approach using some buzzwords, we can see that it works. So again, where's the balance between really bringing awareness towards a new technology, but at the same time, raising the responsibility of people, making them understand that there is a shared responsibility. Nothing that will come on in today's world will be the miracle or magic solution for all of their problems. And currently we still need a lot of discussion around this particular aspect.
I mean, that's the story of the hype cycle, isn't it? Like when we had the peak of the AI hype cycle, I think it was last year or something like that, where all the startups need to print AI on their glossy, shiny white papers. The year before it was blockchain.
Exactly.
The year before it was maybe cloud or whatever. The year before it was IoT. I mean, that's rather clear. I think every year we have this kind of peak topics. And I need to be rather honestly, our company is dealing with IoT, cybersecurity, AI, and blockchain. I mean, how many buzzwords you can put into one company? I mean, that's but we try
it's
to
completely possible because those things don't work alone. You can mix all those things to build great things.
Exactly. It's like the way, if you look at from a logical level, like what kind of building blocks you need to build a secure world for the future. I think everything comes together, and that's leading me as well to Sudha, because when we have talked about this episode, she said, look, I want to talk about self-healing systems. And that's what I really like, because currently what I see is AI is rather good on everything like which needs to be automated and which is high scaling. So if you are facing a problem which is scaling much bigger than any humans can scale, and if it's a lot of data, AI is rather helpful currently. Maybe it will change in the future as well, but there is now an advantage. If you look in cybersecurity, we have two issues. One, for example, on the IoT, that we are scaling the IoT from currently maybe 30 billion devices to 100, whatever, 40, 50 billion devices the next 10 years, which is not possible to scale human resources in the same level for protection. So I think that's where AI is stepping in. And on the other side, we see that with the scaling, and the attackers are getting more and more flexible on the way how they are attacking, and the systems are getting more complex, like they are attacking. By that, we have this big attack surface. And when Sudha was telling me, oh, it's about self-healing, I got immediately, of course, this picture of, oh, what we made, the solution must be to adopt what nature is doing. Because in nature, we have always the problem, like for human bodies, we are now the best example for it, as we are all in lockdown still. But human bodies are affected since ever from attackers. And what we are not dreaming of to prevent completely, to keep the attackers outside, because we know it doesn't work, because it's a complex system. A body is a complex system. So what we have learned is for self-healing mechanism, where we say, well, there are constantly attacks going in, there are constantly manipulations in terms of us, maybe our DNA or whatever, but our body has developed mechanisms for self-healing. And that's, Sudha, like, just tell a little bit more, like, what is your idea of self-healing and where AI is stepping into this topic?
It's a huge topic. So so I have to tell people my favorite AI is the self-driving car, because it is going to take a function that we do, which is driving, we should not have even we should not have even started in the first place as humans, because we are erratic and we make mistakes, and there are hundreds of thousands of accidents and deaths that happen each year. And so self-driving car is one technology that was created saying, instead of the human, let the vehicle drive itself. And there is so much excitement. At least for 8 years, it was about technology, that can we do this? And then there are many problems. The basic problem is, if somebody, if the car is driving, can it identify the human in all kinds of situations? Can it identify different objects in the road? And today the car, which runs on an AI inference model and learns each time it is driving in a pilot and improves, it doesn't improve dynamically, it improves as the next version of software fed by the images it sees, but it cannot identify if it had not seen that object before. And even when you say human, and it has to be trained in human in all kinds of situations. But then people are taking that next step and saying, can we look at the emotions of people? Can we get the gait of people as they're walking? There is always a positive side of the story when any of these are said. And they said, we can heal your back problem if we actually find out how you're walking, and AI can predict whether you're walking right or wrong. So, but then there is the other side of technology where somebody could misuse it and say, hey, you have road rage, I'm not going to let you drive. Or you are this kind of emotional person, I'm not going to give you this job. I mean, they can. So I think I want to say, before we go into the self-healing AI topic, I want to say the real threat to AI, to that whole view of is it evil, comes from the evil human. I don't think AI can become as evil as the human who is today. There are some humans who are not good, who manipulate, like even in Skynet, right? It is not the device that woke up and said, I'm going to rule the world. So that's where I would go. So having said that, the concept of AI is always fascinating for me, not even just AI. Even before that, I used to head mobile analytics at eBay, and we used to look at data and to optimize customer experience. And I sincerely believe with my team that we are helping the customer to make the right purchase. And after some time, I realized it is not just, the customer making the purchase. We are optimizing for growth, because mine was like a $21 billion business. But I have patents in data mining to understand, is this a buyer or a seller, and are they interested in this kind of product, and how do we optimize and bring that back as a learning system, not as a healing system, but as a learning system. So the thing with AI is that it has the capacity to learn. And what kind of data are you going to feed it, and how are you going to reward the AI to go in that direction, is where we are today. So the concept of healing AI is useful, like a doctor, right? A doctor heals people and is a good person. So if the AI is going to heal for cybersecurity, to bring us back to the conversation we are supposed to have here, right? Because I was thinking cybersecurity in a self-driving car is scary. So if the AI, and there are AI solutions from startups where they, in real time, they look at the brain of the car. And today the car it's not just self-driving car, right? The self-driving car has the self-driving car technology, but then it is built, a car runs from multiple OEMs, multiple component players, everybody has a piece of technology. So when you put all of it together, at some point in the integration, something can go wrong. And so the AI is watching in real time for cybersecurity attacks, for any kind of mismatch on integration that could cause a risk to the device, which is the car. That kind of thing is the healing AI in the car. So
yeah, so it's about complexity. Yeah. So it's about dealing the upcoming complexity, isn't it? Because like a car of the past was more, let's say, a mechanical thing interacting with humans, because with other drivers, and now we are stepping in a world where a car itself is becoming a complex software platform with many connections, interacting with other software platforms on many connections. And interacting with humans, which, I mean, like from a software perspective, I think software is always predictable, humans not. So this is rising the complexity we are facing in. And maybe I would shift to Magda, because I know Singapore like this. So if you talk with your clients, because I know you're doing as well some AI stuff, you have some relations in towards cybersecurity. So if we talk about like, how do they see the most promising part of AI? Is it like dealing with the complexity, or is it like dealing with the scalability, or in practice, what they are looking for?
I think in practice, they actually are looking around automation. They do not understand, in my view, the complexity of especially the cyberspace or the environment anyway. They can acknowledge even the attack surface of their own companies in certain cases. So coming back to the basics, where you start and you need to understand where your data is currently, have a clear visibility on that, and then basically understand your attack surface, is something that, again, depends on the maturity of the company and who's in charge. And most of the time, when we are talking cybersecurity, we are talking to different regions, different company sizes, different regulation or regulatory requirements from those business owners, or it depends who you're talking with, right? And their perception of things are different. But I have never actually found a person who really understood, apart in our field, of course, cybersecurity industry, the complexity of their environment, especially nowadays with the data floating all around. They do not have enough visibility about that. So addressing or using AI for complexity, I wouldn't say that is a priority for at least for the people that I know in my environment, but automation is. So reducing time of process of certain activities or actions, ensuring that it's automated, allowing them to increase their time and efficiency or productivity into doing something else instead. It is something that is coming up very often. And this, again, comes back to the fact that the technology is seen from the functional perspective, but it is forgotten around, security aspects, or our privacy aspect as well. Sudha mentioned, startups coming up in the space, but I have seen startups as well using those, I'm coming back to the buzzwords, right? Using the buzzwords, building minimum viable product, MVPs, and launching them to their customers, why they do not take in consideration any aspect of cybersecurity or privacy. And this is, in my opinion, very common across the startup landscape. Why? Minimization of cost and a lack of awareness around security by design and privacy by design. So let's get the product out, and then we think about how to secure it, maybe after a few years, if someone realizes that we actually don't have any controls in place.
Yes, so I mean, I'm totally in your line. It's one of my most famous talks is about cybersecurity, IoT fails and stuff like that. And I always say, well, look, one basic thing which is going wrong is agile software development. Why? Not because my team is also working agile. I mean, that's a brilliant way to manage projects, but it's not a brilliant way to make secure products, because unfortunately on agile, often the security is not in line with the burn rate the team has to make to finish a product and bring it to life. So that we come back later to the car issue, because I'm still fixed on it. And there are some interesting topics, but I would just hand over to Dalton now as well.
I want to add one, I want to add one thing, if that's okay.
Yeah, it's okay, yeah.
So I wrote a book called IoT Disruptions 2020 in 2016. And Dalton has done the translation of that. It's just available. It's not quite available in the App Store. It shows up in the App Store, but it will be available for purchase in a week or so. And we looked at AI and IoT, how it's coming together. And that's what my book is about. And when Dalton translated it, we wrote about COVID in there, and Amazon said, you have the word COVID, we will not let you publish this, and held the book down for a while. And then finally, we had to remove the word COVID, and then they said it's okay. So there are still people behind businesses who are controlling what this is.
But the question is
that
like,
is the reality of where we are.
yeah, the
And that will
reality,
make that more.
but isn't the question is like when the algorithm is checking your content and there are some keyword phrases in it, like, and it put it on hold. That's what the algorithm is doing, put it on hold, and then someone in the business needs to make a decision. I mean, like, then it's the reality for stupid machine learning algorithm in practice. But of course, like, still there is a lot of human decision in behind. But like with the autonomous driving, we are stepping in a situation where from some certain things popping up in this complex environment, we can't rely on a human decision because it needs this low latency, quick decision and with all the dilemmas we know, like drive in the group of the elderly people or drive in the group of the school kids. I mean, endless topic. But that, like, I know that you are IoT AI, as even Sudha said, expert. Like, if you now talk with your clients regarding this promising of AI, do they look more on, let's say, also automation issues, or are these also guys who are now planning their new products, their new complex products, and they are thinking about more like how can we deal with the complexity of the future?
Yes, it's a great question, Mirko, and it depends on the project. It depends on it depends on each case. I can mention one of my latest projects around IoT and AI. I started building something for smart home. It's pump, automated pump, but to trigger the pump itself, instead of contacting with the hand, this liquid soap pump, I built something using voice command, like, okay, Google, liquid soap, please. And the pump goes down automatically, and my hand just to receive the liquid soap, right? And I expanded this for smart building, where I installed it here where I live. I live in a condominium with 2 buildings, and with the manager, we installed this kind of thing in the 2 buildings to keep people safety, hands sanitized. And one more thing I installed is a thermometer with no contact, just to gathering information and data about the health of the people of the community who lives here. And when we talk about data privacy, we're talking about receiving those data. But for example, if Mirko, if Sudha, Magda, and Dalton lives here in this condominium and they want to, it's not no obligation, they want to sanitize his/her hands and take their corporal temperature, they can use this kind of digital solution. But when the manager of the condominium receives this kind of data, he is not receiving the name Dalton, Mirko, Magda, and Sudha. He is just receiving the information of the temperature. But there are a lot of details inside that. Just to keep, for example, you can think about something. Dalton can go there 10 times, and it does not count as 10 people, because to trigger this, you have your own QR code, but this QR code is not connected to your name. Understand the difference?
Yes, I think like when we were talking about this COVID stuff, I've seen a graphic in the US from a supplier of smart thermometers, and I was a little bit wondering, like, because like if you measure your body's temperature, it's to me health data, it's health related data. So from a European perspective, this is the highest level of data protection you can imagine. But this vendor was presenting a map for the US with all the body temperatures they have collected currently. And of course, what they can do is with whatever algorithms to make prediction of how many people have fever, yes or not, and what is the correlation maybe to the COVID-19 19 cases and stuff like that, which was to me almost a bad example of IoT, because I think like whatever the people have agreed when they choose, like that they're buying the device, they're the terms and conditions, 455 pages, and then they agree on it. And what they have agreed is that all the data collected by the thermometer is going into a cloud service, and someone is using this data for health data prediction, which is at least something good. I think at least doing health data prediction is something good. It's not about good and bad of the map, because the map itself is something good, but it's the way how the data has been explored, transferred, used, shared, whatever, because this is out of control. I will come back later to you, Sudha. I have still a question, but I just want to know, Magda, like, how is the awareness of companies about, like, when they step into IoT and they say, well, we have collecting data and data is the new oil, blah, blah, blah. How is really the awareness on privacy issues and data protection issues there?
I will come back actually on one point that was mentioned by Dalton about, that there is a disconnection between certain areas. And I think when we're talking about privacy, I see a lot of companies doing literally a checkbox exercise around compliance. They do not take in consideration the technical requirements as such of securing data. Perhaps that exercise of compliance with the privacy regulation or law could have been efficient 20 years ago or 30 years ago, when we had papers and data wasn't actually around, the cyberspace across the different, devices, different storage like cloud, etc. So I would say there is a complete disconnection between privacy, in my opinion, and security. And therefore, that brings me also to the other problem. There is a misunderstanding of how both can ensure that whatever new technology you adopt in the business, it will enable the business as such to perform additional activities, to make sure that the business is more competitive, to raise additional interest from partners, clients, etc. So when we are talking about adopting IoT, the business side sees only literally the direct usage case of that IoT. I will collect data that will enable me, for example, a smart building. Perfect. They do not ask, what about privacy? What about security? How I ensure that the network for my IoT devices is actually properly segregated and outside of my corporate network, even in some of the cases. So there is a lot of actually are not yet part of the discussions. Let's say, again, an example, the CEO of a big multinational company decides that he or she likes the product of a startup and presumably wants to create a new product for their big company. They integrate it in the platform without even, again, a proper assessment of those two areas. So to answer your question short, I think there's a lot of work in that space as well. Again, having an IoT because it will create a new business opportunity is fantastic. But are the business owners asking the right questions before adopting the technology, or are they doing it afterwards because there is an issue or someone within the company raised a concern?
So with
Sorry, Marco, may I add something to just to complement?
Yeah.
And great topics Magda are mentioning, but from my perspective, I see the clients, the business, maybe they don't ask because they don't know about those questions, but I hardly believe that is on our side, at least for me as a consultant, to show, to put on the table all the variables. Of course, data privacy is one thing and cybersecurity is another. And adding, continuing with the project with the condominium, data privacy is one thing. For example, we caught at least 5 people in the condominium that tested the fever, right? And the rule is, we don't know your name. You are free to share with us if you are with symptoms or diagnostic with COVID. And from these 5, only 1 is missed. We don't know. The other 4 people got in touch with the condominium manager, and we saw the data privacy for those people completely covered. And the cybersecurity around the digital solution itself, it was covered too, because of all the IP network, internal and external network stuffs around the protocols we know.
But that's to me this kind of, okay, technical, you can do it. I would like to play Mr. Super Evil now, and I will, because I have, for the next question for Sudha, I'm now playing Mr. Super Evil because you said, well, the evils are the humans, isn't it? So let's take in consideration AI is something which is always connected to big data, because you need, like for machine learning, you need kind of big data for training algorithms, or on the other side, or it's about automation, how to leverage the best out of data. So AI is always connected to big data. If I am Mr. Super Evil and I think about what will be the next ransomware business model, then I think the next ransomware business model is to manipulate the data sets which are feeding the AI algorithms. Now it's getting a little bit more complicated, to force them to wrong decisions, and by that to disturb the system or affect the system which are doing their operation based on the decisions of the AI algorithms. So it's a little bit a more complex way of attacking, but at the end, as we know, that there are a lot of maybe businesses in the future are based on AI data-driven business models. I can create huge amount of damages. And as this is about big data, it's rather hard to find out which kind of data points have been manipulated, yes or not. So my ransomware approach for ransomware 4.0 2025 will be, okay, I will manipulate the data points. And look, customer, if you want to have information about what kind of data points I have manipulated, you have to pay, I don't know if it's Bitcoin or Monero. Let's see the next 5 years, what will be the best cryptocurrency. So Sudha, how can we, first of all, is this an insane idea? And secondly, what can we do? I mean, how can we protect ourselves from this kind of attacks?
So I love what Magda was saying, that, you know, businesses assume technology is here and ready, will do whatever they think it will do, and ask and get started. And second thing is, it is really about automation and, you know, saving money or creating some efficiency. So when we are talking about AI and evil, we are not thinking about the typical enterprise use case, which is all about optimization. So I want to separate out the building the AI algorithm, which is a $100 trillion business by 2025 is the projection. And the applied AI is a $14 trillion business because of the friction of digital transformation and change management and all that stuff. So in your example, since you gave an example of a company, I'm assuming they had silos of data. Somebody like Dalton, who's a digital transformation consultant, came in and said, okay, let's make sense of this data and put this together. And then Magda said, hey, you can't just, you know, make whatever you're asking happen right now. It does not make business sense. Let's go focus on creating this efficiency for your customers, say a hotel check-in, right? So when you come in and you say AI and a hacker wants to manipulate, hackers typically manipulate because they want to hold companies hostage to on something very quick and easy, right? That they can turn it on and turn it off. So I personally think this whole idea of changing the algorithm so that they can hold them hostage is not going to happen because of the human, right? The human motivation, if the human is a hacker and wants to make money, it is easier for them to just say, I won't let them open the doors or close the doors or do something, get into your system. Or, you know, in olden times, we used to have this cookie monster as a virus. And you have to keep feeding it a cookie and it'll say, ha, 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 and it'll just loop around and you have to type cookie. So I think the hacking the algorithm is feasible technically, but what is practically going to happen is they are going to look at the applied side of AI and easily hack it to hold them hostage. But coming back to your theoretical set, what if that could happen, right? I would say that unfortunately is happening today in the algorithms, not as a hacker wanting to hold somebody hostage, but because of the prejudice of somebody wanting to profile somebody racially, right? So to actually, you know, bring their evil prejudices into the world, right? So that is already happening, not by a hacker, but by the person who's actually building the algorithm, A, because they are prejudiced, or B, because they're just manipulating the system. So there is a whole set of people who call themselves as AI ethicists, who are working on this, saying, in a healthcare setting, we want the AI to be transparent and tell us why it made a certain decision. And in Dalton's case, it said the temperature sensor is a sensor, so it is actually going to say, give the temperature. But if it's an AI looking at a pattern and say, yesterday you were not sick and today you're sick, and I see a pattern, and based on that, the AI says somebody who entered building 5 is sick, somebody who entered building 6 is not 6, right? So it's possible that you could have the AI manipulated. So there is AI ethicist. I think AI ethicist is the hottest job of the future, near future, because we are going to have these evil people who are going to mess up the data that feeds the AI. And there are going to be these AI ethicists who are saying, this doesn't make privacy sense. Even if you think it's privacy protected, I can actually, it is not differential privacy, that I can do some calculation and deduce who that person is. If Dalton, in your case, if you start getting a temperature sensor like that in a certain building, even if you don't know the person, you would have ways to narrow down and say, this person went this time, this person went again, or they seem to be coming at 4 o'clock, so it looks like a person who's coming back from work. When they went in, there was this other little person, so that's a person with a kid. You could do some manipulation and arrive at that. So my main point is, theoretically, that hacking is feasible. Again, all the systems that are being built, like AI is not running itself. It's not like a physical thing that's running itself. It is being funded by somebody. It is being developed by somebody who's paid to do that. And there is a motivation, and they have a distribution channel to reach people. That is the construct of business under which AI is deployed today. And that is run by a good person or person with prejudice.
I mean, to be honest, we are all humans. So I think what we have seen on some good cases is that human failures are just sweeping over to the AI algorithms and the way how the decisions there were made. One famous failure was the chatbot on social media, who was then just turning into a more, let's say, racist level, because it was just, let's say, he was on a bad peer group for feeding the algorithm. And so and then you have all the self-amplifying mechanism, that if you start in one direction, if the algorithm is running in one direction, you have all the self-amplifying effects, and it was getting a racist chatbot. But nobody, of course, from the engineering team wants to build a racist chatbot. It was just a question, like, let's say, a wrong setting of the experiment. and maybe a wrong setting of the way how the algorithm was trained at the end. But to me, it's something like this kind of examples are important because we see at the end it's technology. So it's not magic. It's not it's still not maybe if it's self-regulating, it doesn't say anything about, as you say, the ethical frame around. And if you say, like, coming back to AI and cybersecurity, what if AI will decide from a user perspective level, for example, like the driver issue you have for autonomous car. So this is about safety and security. So if there is any scoring in behind which will tells you that this driver is often drunk, or he has a rude behavior, so he is an overall threat for the traffic system. What if an AI algorithm will decide, no, I will not unlock the car? I mean, things like that can happen.
Yes, it's feasible. It's actually feasible in today's technology.
Exactly, because this is just a question like how we implement technology at this level. And even what I see
in Australia, they have a system by which they take the images from traffic cameras and look at people in the cars and use computer vision to figure out whether the person is texting and driving. So they are actually looking at images of people. They're looking whether they're holding the cell phone and they're on the driver's side. And that's very basic algorithm that I'm giving, but I'm sure it's doing a lot more intelligent things to figure out whether the person is driving, and it sends them a ticket. And so again, it's presented as it's going to help people.
I think the problem is not that it's sending a ticket. Maybe that's okay. I think the problem is always like, if the systems are getting this kind of complex on making decisions, it's always like, if now something is going wrong, I mean, we know that the algorithms has also false positive and false negative possibilities. Yeah. So now, unfortunately, I'm a false positive for the ticket. You know, I have no chance from an evidence side. I have no chance to approve it anymore. Like, because if everybody's trusting into the algorithm system like that, we are completely stepping into a world where sometimes the dice, because it's still a little bit rolling the dice. And if you are unlucky, you get a ticket. I mean, even if you have not texted, and you have no chance to approve it anymore. That's something what I'm a little bit feared. And even for cybersecurity, like, oh, they are all now this promising algorithms stepping in. What we will create is a society, if people are believing in algorithms, that no one will doubt anymore the results of the algorithms. If they are in 99% good, no one will doubt anymore. But the last 0.001% is maybe the door we open for attackers, and then you have no chance to prove it anymore.
So you got me into this turf, but it is going to be, sorry, Magda, do you want to say something?
Yeah, but maybe just answer you, Sudha, and then Magda can answer on it, because it's
okay. So I want to, it's very provocative, so I just want to say this one thing, and then I want to hear what Magda want to say. So I would say, in that situation where the algorithm, we get to a society where we trust algorithms, and the algorithm could do things and the human can become powerless, is never going to happen, because we are going to have another algorithm that is going to come to our defense. There's going to be a lawyer algorithm, or lawyers are going to have some kind of AI, which already exists in legal industry, who are going to say, how do I prove that my client was not wrong, was innocent, using the data? So it's going to be, maybe there is, all these cars today are connected and they all have cameras. So I can actually show the camera from my Tesla to show that I was actually not, I was innocent, and I was not, I don't deserve this ticket. So the point is, you could have AI making the accusation and another AI actually fighting the case. So that is where it's like becomes a learning system. So I want to
it's like chess playing AI. So Magda, what was your?
I really like that, and it's definitely what I can envision as well. You know, in the future, basically having algorithms from lawyers trying to fight back for sure. So the great example. I wanted to actually come back on the fact that people believe that an algorithm will solve their problem, like even if it's 99%, they don't realize that there is a part that might be wrong. This is already happening, in my opinion, with companies adopting cloud. I hear very often on regular basis, and this is no matter of the company's size, like statements like, oh, but my cloud service provider is taking care of my security. And I'm like, why? Where is that exactly written in your contract? And then that starts the discussion, and they come, what do you mean? They take care of my security. I'm like, no, unless you have a managed service provider where you clearly identify the scope of work. If not, you have a shared responsibility. And that means that you need to do your part of the job in order to ensure the security. And this is something, again, where there is a misconception that, oh, it comes by default. It will bring with it the security, the privacy, everything is embedded, and then I can trust it on top of that. So when the question of trust comes in, I actually like to mention the example, and I use it very much in my awareness training as well. I mention, who do you trust the most in life? And people look at me and their answer is very straight, myself. I'm like, so why do you trust anything else that relates to a technology to protect you, to take care of your decision, to make your life, literally? You need to have that independence as a human being. You have a brain, you can think, you understand your responsibilities, and you take that responsibility onwards.
But technology is changing the way how people's perception. Let's take in consideration how many people are using map service for when they're driving with the car, and we have some spectacular cases where people were driving into rivers because they were looking, they were completely believing what's on the route. I mean, Dalton, coming back to you, what is your opinion about it? Are you using Google Maps, and are you just looking on the maps, or do you also look on the road?
Both. And I'd like to add something regarding your question about the devil trying to ruin the algorithm. I can tell you from my own experience. Of course, most of my authorial projects and for the clients, it's necessary to have security professional involved. Because I can give you one practical example. I built a chatbot, and I can assure you all day someone is trying to, some hackers trying to access it. And regarding algorithms being attacked, I believe, all the systems, mainly the mission critical systems, needed to be built with security protocols. Because, for example, I built a chatbot, and I see every day someone trying to access it, trying to modify something. But I can see that, why? Because I built that prepared for the attack. Right? I know at what time, what they are trying to do, from which country. I have the IP, of course. It can be a fake IP or things like that. And I can share with you guys that all the systems needed to be prepared for the attack. Yes, and needed to have a security professional involved. Otherwise, you will be ruined.
Yes, of course. Sure. But if we take I mean, I like to talk with the people of the industries, like let's say from the beginning, like a lot of car manufacturers who are now stepping in autonomous car. And then on the other side, you're talking with the insurance industries. And then you know how liability is treated in traffic. That's rather complicated because you have a car insurance, you have the personal insurance of the people. And it's a question like, was it a technical failure or was it a failure of the driver? And now the big question is, oh, how do we find out, was it a failure of the algorithm? And who will be liable?
All depends. It will depends on the architecture, how the system was built, and where, when we talk about cloud, where you are hosting your data. Yes, it depends in a lot of things.
No, I think what I want to say is just like, what we see is that the complexity is rising. Again, it's rising much faster than any liability or regulation or whatever can step in. They are always 2 or 3 steps in behind. But if we go like in a complex environment, like Sudha was telling what she's working on, I mean, to me, it's something like, at the end, a lot of forensic research was always in the past like, oh, there was a failure, let's disassemble the system, have a look inside, oh, there's the gear is broken, this was causing the problem. In the future, it's getting much more complex. It's a question like, because you can't disassemble it anymore in that way. We can't look for certain AI algorithms inside. We don't know, but we need to identify, was it an attacker from the outside? Because just for liability issues, we need to identify, was it an attacker or was it a problem of was it a technical, let's say a technical problem of the system? And I think that's where it's getting much more complicated in the future. And even the industry has still no answer on this.
So can I add something about
yes, of course.
So there is a whole area of technology called InsurTech, which is technology for insurance companies. So I teach a course called Business of Autonomous Vehicle Data online. And all the cars that are launched, are released today or like sold today, actually come with a SIM card. They don't sell it to us and ask us to get a service because we are not used to that model. But there is data that is going in and out of the car. And all the parts of the car have digital twins, which means they are sending data and they're collecting data all the time. Car makers are not utilizing all their data. So there's a lot of possible use cases. And one obvious one is the insurance use case. And so there's a whole bunch of technology that insurance companies are using to dynamically figure out who can be blamed. So did the accident happen because the person was not driving properly? Then you can look at their past driving behavior and say, this is your pattern of behavior of driving, and you tend to press on the brake pad fast because the brake pad in your car is failing at a faster rate than the average of this model. So yes, you have a higher chance of being blamed for that. And so again, it's an AI that is going to look at historic data to make that decision. And insurance companies are looking to figure out how dynamically they can assign.
Yes, wow. Very nice statement. And it's like always, we had an hour for the talk and it's almost done, which is always amazing because I think like, I'm so happy that I had you all on board. And just like to wrap me up, what I have learned is that Singularity might take a longer time than some people are predicting. Skynet is something which is maybe caused by humans, but not by algorithms. But it was really good to talk to you. And for the audience out there, if you like it, just subscribe to the channel. And of course, this will be available afterwards and promoted afterwards as well. And we give you all the possibility to make a quick statement at the end. So let's start with Magda.
I would say my statement at the end or takeaway is remember, any technology is a shared responsibility model. So you have your part to actually make it work properly.
Okay, cool. Dalton?
As I used to say, technology is part of the overall, not the main thing. Sometimes technology is the heart, sometimes it's the brain, sometimes it's just the arm.
Yeah,
and
cool.
You need to mix technology with process and another things to make it all work.
Very cool. Sudha.
I would say everything that you see as AI today, when you see it, you have to see that the hype is what is driving, page views for somebody, another AI manipulating a system. So take that in perspective. And my take on this whole AI is, with technology, we are trying to recreate nature. And that's where we are. We have not gone past that stage where it is doing anything that we can't even imagine is possible today. So the one thing that humans have is imagination. And the one thing humanity has is kindness. And that cannot be recreated. So even I saw a robot that is a nurse. And I was like, you should not have a robot being a nurse. Yes, it could do temperature taking or something in today's situation, which might be useful. But the empathy with which a nurse would interact with a sick patient is never going to be replaced. So I believe that as long as we look at things with humanity, which is how we have empathy and kindness, and we are able to put ourselves in another person's shoes, AI is not going to take over anything. And at the practical sense, where like Dalton and Magda were saying, think about technology and as process and what it is doing. And it's not just going to be a panacea for everything. So see what it can do, because you are going to make it do what you want it to do.
Okay, we are make it. Thank you very much. Very good last statement. So just the next announcement, the next cybersecurity expert talk, we do a recording, we show a recording next week about quantum computing. I did a very good interview with Andy Stanford Clark on the state of quantum computing, which was also exciting. So have a look there. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining. This was really an exciting talk. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very
Bye.
much.
Thank you very much, and stay safe, everyone.
Yes. Thank you. Bye.